Marisol stood at the edge of the river, barefoot, the chill of the August evening creeping into her bones. The current whispered against the rocks below, steady and uncaring, unlike the storm that had started to rise inside her. She hadn't meant to fall in love. Not after everything. Not after surviving what most people couldn't even stomach hearing. She'd built a new life after escaping. Changed her name, moved across 3 states, started volunteering at the women's shelter not because she had to, but because she owed it to the scared girls who reminded her of the girl she once was. She wore strength like armor. Her smile was real now, her hands steady, her dreams no longer haunted by locked doors and cold eyes. Then came Lucas. He had appeared one winter morning at the community garden, holding a coffee in each hand and an easy grin. He said he was new in town. He said he liked the way she talked to the plants like they could hear her. He offered to help mulch the beds and stayed long after the sun had disappeared, laughing when they got muddy and cooking her soup on the second night they met. He was gentle in the ways she didn't know she still needed. He didn't press when she flinched at loud noises. He never asked about the scars. He waited, and she let him in. It took months, 6 of them, for her to fully believe in him. She told him the story in pieces, never quite naming the worst of it, but enough. Enough to see if he'd run. But he didn't. He held her like a lifeline and whispered things like, "You're safe with me," and "They'll never touch you again." Until today. Started with a photo. A small, square printout slipped under her windshield wiper, plain as day. Photo of her 15 years ago. Handcuffed to a radiator. Swollen. Someone had scribbled something on the back. Property. Still. Her stomach dropped. She called Lucas, heart in her throat, voice trembling. He rushed to her, arms open, voice tender. But when she gave him the photo, something changed in his eyes. Flicker. Gone in an instant but not fast enough. Later that night, her instincts screamed. She found herself retracing steps, conversations, offhand comments. The way he'd known her favorite tea before she told him. How he'd reacted when she mentioned the name of her old foster home. How his phone had a message that flashed too quick to catch. "Boss wants her moved. Tomorrow." Her hands went cold. And she realized. He was never Lucas. He was a plant. A ghost from her past wrapped in a lover's skin. A recruiter sent to retrieve what the syndicate still considered theirs. Someone had found her, and instead of sending brutes, they sent charm. She packed that night in silence. No tears. Just precision. But before she could leave town, he was there. Her door. No mask this time. "Marisol," he said softly, stepping into the light. "You don't have to run. I'm not going to hurt you." She stared at him, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. "You've been lying to me since the beginning." He sighed, almost regretful. "I didn't want to. I got a sign to bring you in. But then, I started to care. I still care." "Don't," she hissed. "Don't you dare stand there and pretend this is love." "I'm not pretending anymore," he said, stepping forward. "We could go. Not back to them, away. I can protect you." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't get to protect me. You were the threat." Something in his face broke. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "But it is," she said. "And I'm not the girl you thought you could control." Her hand moved quickly. Pepper spray to his face, a swift kick to his knee. She moved like someone who'd trained for years for this exact moment. 'Cause she had. She wasn't going back. Not ever. When she drove off into the dark that night, she left behind a man screaming her name and clutching his face. But she didn't look back. Not once. The back roads blurred beneath the tires as Marisol drove east into the night, the highway swallowing her headlights 1 mile at a time. Her fingers gripped the wheel so tight the skin turned white, but her mind was far behind her, stuck in the silence of her empty apartment, in the glint of Lucas's lie-soaked eyes, in the heat of betrayal searing through her chest. She had been hunted once before. Caged. Stripped of her name, her choices, her voice. She had clawed her way out of that hell at 17, bruised and barely breathing, with no one to trust. And now, they had tried to pull her back in, this time wrapped in romance and fake promises. It had almost worked. That was what shattered her the most. Lucas, if that was even his real name, had touched pieces of her soul no one had touched in over a decade. And she had let him, willingly, opened every scar, every memory because she thought, maybe this was what healing looked like. But it wasn't healing. It was surveillance. She was never falling in love. She was being tracked. She pulled into a desolate motel on the edge of nowhere by 3 a.m. It was the kind of place people went to disappear, and that suited her fine. Flickering neon, moldy carpet, keys that were still actual keys. Inside the room, she collapsed on the bed, letting her breath slow inch by inch. Her pulse was still loud in her ears. She couldn't trust anyone. Not the police. Half the trafficking ring had been protected by badge-wearing men when she was first taken. Not the shelters, some of them had been infiltrated before. They always knew where to look. She reached under her jacket and pulled out the burner phone. She only used it for one thing. She texted. Code red. They found me. And waited. Within 2 minutes it buzzed. Safe House East. Same protocol. Leave car. Wear the black cap. We'll be watching. Relief didn't come, but something close to it settled in her bones. Eloise was one of the few people who had been in the same nightmare and walked out still breathing. They'd met in a trauma recovery program for survivors, though the program itself had been a front. Eloise had uncovered it and burned it to the ground. Since then they kept tabs on each other, like shadows guarding other shadows. Marisol stared at the peeling paint of the motel ceiling. It all made sense now. The way Lucas always just happened to know when she'd be alone. The way he talked about the future, but always avoided talking about his own past. He didn't care where he came from, only where she was going, where he could take her. But the fire in her wasn't dead. If anything, this betrayal had fed it. By sunrise, she had ditched her car, changed clothes, and taken a circuitous route by foot and bus to the drop point, an old auto body shop east of the city. She knocked 3 times, paused, and knocked twice more. The back door creaked open. Eloise's sharp eyes studied her from beneath a black hoodie. Marisol was pulled inside and hugged tight before either of them said a word. Who was it? Eloise asked. Marisol didn't hesitate. His name was Lucas. Or that's what he told me. I think he was sent by the people I ran from. Eloise swore under her breath. You okay? I'm not bleeding, Marisol said. But no. I'm not okay. Eloise handed her a cup of instant coffee. You want revenge? Marisol looked up slowly. Her face was quiet, cold, focused. No, she said. I want justice. I want to take down the whole network. Every last bastard who still thinks they own girls like me. Then we burn it down. For good this time. Over the next week, Marisol worked with Eloise and a handful of other survivors. All women who had been stalked, stolen, sold, and somehow lived. They didn't go to the authorities. They were the authority in the only way that mattered. They gathered names, faces, locations. Lucas, they discovered, was not just a recruiter. He was the cleaner, the one they sent when someone went too public or too powerful to disappear easily. The man was a master manipulator, trained to build trust, break it, and bring the target back compliant, emotionally destroyed and too shattered to fight. But he had failed. And Marisol was no longer anyone's victim. She was done running. She was going to be the reckoning. The safe house had no windows, no clocks, no noise except for the soft hum of computers and the clatter of keyboards. It was buried under an abandoned warehouse on the edge of an industrial park, a fortress built not of steel and stone, but of silence, secrecy, and scars. Marisol hadn't slept in 3 days. Not because she couldn't, but because her mind wouldn't stop moving. Because every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucas's hand on hers. Every time she let herself breathe, she remembered how close she'd come to giving him everything. But now she was done being prey. She stared at the corkboard in front of her, covered in red string and photos, The names of traffickers, corrupt officials, shell companies, false identities. The board looked like chaos to anyone else, but to her, it was the skeleton of an empire. And she was learning how to snap the bones. "This is where we start," Eloise said behind her, pointing to a photo in the top left corner. It was grainy and dark, but the subject was unmistakable. A tall man in a pressed suit getting into a black SUV. "Victor Mendez," Eloise continued. "Publicly, CEO of a security logistics firm. Privately, he oversees transport for high-value assets, meaning people. He was at the fundraiser 2 weeks ago in Denver. You were almost there." Marisol's lip curled in disgust. "Lucas was going to take me there." "Yeah," Eloise said. "Would have been the handoff point. He gets you there, Mendez puts you on a jet, and boom, you're ghosted. New continent. New buyer. You vanish." "But I didn't," Marisol said. "I'm right here." Eloise grinned. "And we're gonna make him regret ever putting you on his list."